congested. And it just seems like it's calmed down. The first day we got there, the elevator, one of the two elevators was offline. It took them most of the day to get that one fixed.
Well, they were actually cleaning. They were cleaning the, I don't know what you call it. On the top where they had like plastic panels covering the lights, because when we had gotten up to our room or down, I don't remember, I ended up seeing the maintenance, and they were basically just cleaning. So there wasn't anything wrong with the elevator. They were actually just cleaning it.
I see. And then really the only other big complaint I had about the resort was you had someone out there for the better part of a day who was pressure washing one of the staircases at the end of the building.
Right.
And just the fumes, because it was an internal combustion engine compressor they were using, you were gagging as soon as you walked out of your room. Now, granted, it was hot, it was humid, the air wasn't good to begin with.
Right. It might not have been a good day to do that.
Yeah, I mean, have a little, wait for people to at least leave and go to the parks, because this was like, first thing in the morning.
Yeah.
They're doing this type stuff. So, room service. So where we normally don't do room service, we'll put our do not disturb sign out there. They used to do daily room service.
Correct.
And now they're down to every other day, every 3 days
or something. And I think it's every 4 days if you're DVC.
Yeah. And to me, that's a significant drop in service, because they didn't reduce the cost of the room at all.
Right.
In fact, it went up. And you're getting less service there. So that was a ding, I think, in my book. Paying for parking. Still one of my biggest pet peeves that I have there.
Right. And again, going back to that whole, hey, we didn't check in, there was nothing ever said in anything.
Right.
Like, hey, by the way, because for the most part, this was actually one of the first times that we didn't charge things back to the room. One, because we had done a whole gift card thing, so that was a good portion of our charges, and then we just charged it on to our various credit cards, because in most cases, if you were using a Disney credit card and your bill was a certain amount, you would actually get 10% off, whereas if you were charging it back to the room, you weren't going to get that discount. So it wasn't until the end of our stay when we actually got our portfolio, and I was like, oh, what were all these charges? And opened it up, and it was parking. That was literally all it was. And that's where, again, we've been there since they've been charging for parking, so it wasn't a shock for us. But what if this was our first time and we didn't know? That's something, granted, yes, it's not the security officer's job checking you in, but if you're doing the mobile check-in, if you're checking in, online beforehand, something should pop up saying, hey, by the way, just so you know, if you're driving, you're going to have this $15 a day or whatever.
How did they know that we were driving is what I'd like to know.
Well, because we checked in with security, that was what.
So that could have been a rental car we had for one day and got rid of it, or we could have been getting dropped off by someone. How do they know that you're parking there?
Well, and then that's the thing, is that we would have had to.
I would dispute that charge, because it was never detailed anywhere on the original bill.
And that's the other thing too, because what used to happen is when you would go to the front desk and check in, they would ask you, "Oh, are you, staying on property?" Because they would give you a parking permit. Right. So now they don't even print out.
And they'd get your license plate number.
Right, but they got my license plate number when we checked in, because security there was a camera towards the back that could see my tag.
So they're nickel and diming you there, which was very annoying.
Right.
We bought the mugs, which I didn't want to do, but you thought it'd be a good idea to buy the mugs.
Right.
And the quality of mugs have gone down significantly. They've got the cheapest lids. The lids kept falling off. I almost lost the lid twice. It's just, I was very disappointed at that, but that's there to support the fact that you can't get multiple refills. You buy a disposable cup from them, you pay $4 for it, and you're allowed 3 refills within an hour or two or something like that, which is idiotic. It really is.
Right.
Because Disney is not losing money on me getting a refill on my soda.
And granted, almost never got a refill on your soda.
Right.
You know? So
and the problem that I have
but
with
the
that
fact
is
that they
you're charging
do
me
that.
$4 for a soda where 90% of the cost of that drink is the cup.
Just the cup. Yeah.
And you're putting a chip in that cup now so I can't get refills, which makes the cup more expensive. It's an idiotic business model that they have there. I didn't want to go on with any other complaints about the resorts. Did you have any highlights, any positives, anything nice to say to counter any of my complaints?
Well, the one thing I did like, which was new, I think, since the last time we were there, is that they actually have, when you go to the buses, if you're taking the resort transportation, because usually most of the time if we didn't have the scooter already, we would usually just drive to the park. This way we wouldn't have to worry about waiting for a bus or anything else. But because of the scooter, we had to use the transportation. And one of the nice things was as soon as you got to the area, they had a little schedule showing you when the next bus, estimated time when the next bus for the different locations was going to be coming. So that I thought was very helpful.
And they've had that at the moderate and the higher end resorts.
Right.
This was new for us
at the Value Resort. So it was that was nice. a nice touch to see. So
all right. So we'll give them a plus for that one then. Let's take a quick break and we'll come back and we'll talk about some of the technology that Disney is throwing at some of these issues. We'll be right back. For over 7 years, the Second Sith Empire has been the premier community guild in the online game Star Wars: The Old Republic. With hundreds of friendly and helpful active members, a weekly schedule of nightly events, annual guild meet and greets, and an active community both on the web and on Discord. The Second Sith Empire is more than your typical gaming group. We're family. Join us on the Starforge server for nightly events such as operations, flashpoints, world boss hunts, Star Wars trivia, guild lottery, and much more. Visit us on the web today at www.thesecondsithempire.com. Welcome back to Insights into Entertainment. Today we are dissecting Disney. So one of the things that Disney has done to try to enhance the experience is go the technology route. And that technology route is apps on your smartphone at this point in time and bands and all that stuff. So right now, the Disney World app that they have 50th anniversary logo on there is the central part of that technology push. You pretty much need it for anything you want to do: booking rides, checking times, getting into your room, pretending to call the front office because it doesn't work for that.
Your photo pass, reservation.
I have to say that I was very unimpressed with the app. I found it to be poorly designed. Someone looked like someone gave a 5-year-old a box of crowns and asked him to design an interface. It was confusing. It was not obvious or intuitive to use. Finding the information that I wanted just to go in and look up times or to look up available slots for reservations for different extra services like building a lightsaber or a droid, you couldn't find that stuff. And the whole thing was predicated upon this whole idea of build your experience. And in order to do that, you pick the things you want, and that's all that you saw. If you ever wanted to stop outside of that, you had to go back through the entire wizard and reset all your settings in there to see anything. And I thought it was a terrible experience. Right down to the point that you bought one of the new Magic Band Pluses. And what happened with that? Tell us what happened with that.
So I wasn't going to buy the new Magic Band. But the last day we were in a park happened to be the Magic Kingdom. And at Magic Kingdom, they had a Haunted Mansion one. So of course me being the Haunted Mansion person that I am, all right, fine, I'll get it, just to have it, whatever. And we charge it while we were in Hall of Presidents. You had already bought one and you had no issues getting it to sync up. Everything was fine. I go to sync it up and I get an error. And I try and go through again, and then it tells me that the app has a bug and to uninstall and reinstall the app to try and fix it. I do that, doesn't work. I try taking, because there's a QR code, so first I try linking it by the wireless link. That didn't work. Then I tried taking a picture of the QR code to do it that way. That doesn't work. Then I even tried entering the code, manually
Which is a challenge considering how small those numbers are.
Right. Entering the code, nothing. As soon as I would do it, it would fail and, again, tell me that I had a bug. So by that point, I was just fed up, and after spending almost $50 on it, I went back to the store to return it. And of course, the cast member there was like, oh, well, if you do decide to, purchase another one, we do have tech support people, located throughout the park that would be, willing to help you. And by that point, it was already our last day. Maybe if it was our first day in the park and I had, the whole rest of the week to worry about it. But this was literally our last day.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm done.
It wasn't the band itself. It was the app.
Right.
So that's really where I think the biggest complaint was, because there was a lot of things with that app. The calling the front office.
Well, when our phone calling the front
work,
desk.
We tried to call the front desk. You can get to it through the app if you could find it, because it wasn't easy to find.
Right, and that was another thing, another challenge of things weren't where you thought they would be.
Right.
If you did a search, it would eventually find it, but it was like I shouldn't have to be searching every time.
It was almost like they did no user testing of this.
And then that was the whole thing too, because when we were having the issues with the bathroom, I was like, all right, well, let me just call the front desk. And I'm like, and I couldn't even Google a phone number for the front desk either. And then the one day I actually just walked up to the front desk and they were like, oh, well, you could have just done it on your app. I'm like, no, I couldn't. And she didn't believe me.
Right.
And she walked me through it and was like, oh, okay, that is a problem. Yeah. No shit. I know it's a problem. I'm pretty tech savvy. I understand not everybody is tech savvy and you have to talk to, every guest like we're an idiot, but it really wasn't there. And then, so you can't even say, oh, well, it's because you had an Android, because you even had the same problem and you have an Apple phone. Right. So it clearly wasn't user error. No, it's something with your app.
It was app specific.
Right.
So some of the other things I found were an issue was you could look up wait times for rides. Mm-hmm. They weren't accurate. When you guys were going around and doing things, I was riding around the scooter looking at wait times on the app.
Okay.
Oh my God, they were 15 minutes off, 20 minutes off.
So they weren't updating
They
as
were
often.
not done in real time on the app itself, which makes the app useless at that point when it comes to that function.
Right, because especially if that's what you're determining, oh, well, this wait's only, or this wait's 60 minutes, but yet the wait might only be 15 minutes if you actually went there, but then you don't want to go there because...
The entire purpose of the Genie experience is you don't need a fast pass because we can tell you when these times trend here, and it's completely wrong. I lost my Magic Band at one point in time because it was on a little holder on my
original
one. So we kind of panicked a little bit there. We were able to get the ticket to get into the park, but I didn't have a way to get into the room.
Right.
So I was able to use the app for that, and it worked. But it was awkward. It's like 4 screens in, you don't know where on the phone it's transmitting so I'm moving the phone all around the thing to try to get the thing to work.
Right.
It scans the first time and it goes green, but it won't unlock. Well, there's a prompt on the screen that you don't get an audible prompt on where you have to accept the ability to unlock the door at that point.
Yeah, see, I never tried doing it that way. So
it was not It was not good. And the other problem is they don't have any free charging stations that you can use around the park.
Right.
If you want to pay for them, there's a couple.
I was going to say they have the charging rods that I know, and that was something that we knew going in from various other people who had been there and various other YouTube videos and things that said, if you're going, you're going to be on your phone a whole lot more. Make sure you have some sort of battery backup so that you can charge your phone. And honestly, there was only, for me, there was one day that I had to charge my phone, but I really didn't even need to. But that was also because we really weren't using the phone as much.
Well, and we'll talk about that in a second, too.
Yeah.
And the last big complaint that I have about the app is they have this device where they're tracking the vast majority of people because you're dependent on it to use the park. And they're not using the data. We wind up outside waiting for a bus. It took us almost an hour to get a bus when the entire line was full waiting for buses. How are you not using this? You're tracking these people.
Right.
And you're tracking them for the purpose of taking a picture and tying it to their account. How are you not using that information to dispatch buses?
Right.
Or crowd control for different rides? Like, I don't understand why you would have all this information and then not use it for a constructive purpose. They're using it to try to sell you stuff, and that's all they're using it for, and that's a huge insult to the guests.
No, I agree, especially when it comes to the end of the night where everybody is tired, everybody is cranky. Why you would have all these empty buses. Now, granted, maybe you didn't have enough bus drivers, but maybe that's what you need to plan, is that you always know at the end of the night you're gonna have a rush of people wanting to get out. Why not put that extra
and in the past they've had instances where you've had cast members at the bus stops and the cast members are calling in the dispatch saying, I need a bus for this resort, I need a bus for this resort. They didn't have that, and they didn't need it because they have the technology. They just chose not to use the technology. So let's talk about that massive scam that is Genie Plus.
Oh, Genie Plus.
So tell us how much we paid for that and how much we used it.
So we paid $15 per person per day that we were in a park on a regular park ticket. So we only went to the park for 3 days, but the one day was the Halloween party. And because of it being a special ticket event, you don't use Genie Plus on that day. So we only had to pay for Genie Plus for 2 of the days that we were in the park. So $45, so $90 total for the 2 days for the 3 of us, because each individual person has to have it for however many days. And since we hadn't used it before, we figured, you know what? Let's try it. Let's give it a try and see if it makes a difference or helps us out. We took one
for the team so we could review it for the podcast.
Right. And granted, there are lots of pros and cons. You know, there were a couple of friends of mine who had used it before, and they said, oh, it takes a couple of days to get used to it. I'm like, well, I only have 2 days to get used to it. So I either need it to work or not work. And the big push before used to be, you know, buying it ahead of time and making sure you had it, even though you couldn't really do anything with it until the day of. And now there's some other changes that they're making to it. And again, I'm not really 100% sure of what they all are because we're not there anymore. So I'm not really paying attention as to what those changes are. But I know one of the major changes was that you didn't have to purchase it until that day if you wanted to get it. So
doesn't make
again,
it worthwhile.
Right. So
how many rides did we get on using that system?
Okay. So in Epcot, which was our first day, we did the Remy ride with it. We did it with that, or was that with the virtual queue? No, the only thing that the virtual queue you could do with the virtual queue was the Guardians of the Galaxy, and that we didn't get. And that I woke up at
So we got
6:45. So because they had a 7 o'clock and a 1 o'clock for the virtual queue, and I got up at 6:45 to try and get a 7 o'clock, and by 7 o'clock,
well, we already knew the virtual queues were broken.
right? So that was
So we got one ride in Epcot.
well, we technically had 2 because we ended up getting Soarin', and then you didn't want to go on Soarin', so we canceled it, and we ended up doing the single rider, which we didn't know was available.
Well, that's another thing I want to talk about, but when we get to the
Sure.
parks.
So we did have one, but then since you decided not to go on the ride and they had that available, we used that in place of it. So we had gotten rid of that, and then that was when we made the Remy reservation, because the other thing too is when you make the reservation on the Genie Plus now, you can only have one at a time.
Right.
And then once the time frame starts for that reservation or that lightning lane, that's when you can make an additional lightning lane through your Genie Plus.
All right. So we paid $15. We paid $30. Well,
$45.
$45 because I didn't go on Remy, so I'm not counting myself for that. So for $30, you went on one ride in Epcot.
Mm-hmm.
For $30.
Mm-hmm.
And how much did we pay for park tickets?
More than $30.
$1.20 maybe?
I think it was about that. I don't remember what.
So $30 for one ride.
Mm-hmm.
Then we did Studios. How many rides did we get on with Genie Plus with that?
We did. Maddie and I did Toy Story Mania with it. We did Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Coaster with that. What else did we do? We didn't need it for... No, we did use it for Smuggler's Run.
For the second run through.
For the second run, because again, we did the
solo rider.
The solo rider. So we got 3. Did we get a 4th one? I think we only got 3.
Okay.
So we got 3 with that.
So that's now $60 for 4 rides.
Mm-hmm.
Was it worth it?
Probably not.
This is $60 on top of $120 per person per ticket to get in to ride the rides anyway.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So we're talking about $150 per person for Genie Plus and a ticket. And Genie Plus got you 4 rides. That to me is a scam.
Mm.
The other thing that I found was interesting is we got into Magic Kingdom early on Friday because of the party.
Right.
And it was still regular admission in there.
Mm-hmm.
We walked past Peter Pan.
Right.
And the Lightning Lane. And the Lightning Lane was easily a 20-minute wait at Peter Pan.
Mm-hmm.
What's the purpose of the Lightning Lane if it's a 20-minute wait?
Right.
This is the problem that I have.
Well, when the regular ride is a 60-minute wait, a 20-minute wait is nothing. But again,
still,
yes, we know.
That's not Lightning. I'm sorry.
Right. I understand that.
Lightning is I walk in and should be able to get right on the ride.
Right.
Especially when I'm paying for it.
Right.
What rides were not eligible for Genie Plus?
I don't know if there was anything
besides Guardians of the Galaxy.
Well, Guardians of the Galaxy, because that was the virtual queue.
Right. So you could only do virtual. Was Rise of the Resistance one you had to pay to get on, or was that eligible with Lightning Plus?
I think it might have been, because I think what they do with their certain big ticket rides, you know, kind of their e-ticket rides, is they offer the additional pay for me.
Right.
Lightning Lane, and there's so many of those that they put out, and then there's so many regular lightning lanes, and
so here's where the real scam is.
Oh yeah.
So pay $15 for Genie Plus, unless you want to go on this other ride, and then pay another $15 to get on that ride.
Right, and it's not always $15 because depending
they
on
change the rates based on on
the time of year. So it could be $20 to go. Okay. But all the ones that we saw where they were an additional fee. So like the Guardians of the Galaxy, we didn't get the virtual queue. But now they didn't. So with that, it was only virtual queue or paid Lightning Lane. There was no standby, meaning you couldn't just go and wait for 2 hours on a line to get on the ride.
Thank God for that.
Right. So it was either you got in the virtual queue for free, or you paid $15 to get a time spot. So comparing
the scam of Genie Plus to FastPass.
Oh my God. There's no comparison between.
Okay. I think that ends the argument on that one. Then.
Right. There was. I personally didn't. Now, if we had done a full Magic Kingdom day, I could see Magic Kingdom.
Well, the problem I have with that is you can only reserve one at a time.
Right.
And you have a 1 hour cooldown after you've either canceled it or used it.
I don't think we did.
In the app, you do.
Because I was actually able, because the one
might not have been on canceling, but
I don't know, because there was one that I had one reservation and I actually had the next one, and it was actually overlapping because the one was from like 1 to 2 and the next one was from like 1:30 to 2:30, and I was actually surprised that it.
Well, then they may have changed that.
Or it could have been a fluke.
I had a work colleague that was down there 2 months ago and said that was one of the problems they ran into.
So maybe that was something that kind of the same thing.
They're vinyl. They're like the old ones were. So they're very sweaty. They're very hot to wear.
Right.
Mine fell off 3 times.
Right.
After having put it on, I had to have you carry it.
Right.
Because I was afraid I was going to lose it.
Right.
What else did I have down here?
That it didn't have any sound.
No sound. So, like, the thing would vibrate and the thing would light up, but, like, you have no idea why.
Right, because when we were walking out of Magic Kingdom, we didn't walk past anything special that I knew, and all of a sudden I'm like, why is the band...
Right.
You know, I already have enough things on my watch to notify me of different things. I didn't need it.
It's almost like, hey, this is really cool technology, let's sell it. And nobody was like, what are we going to do with it? What's the purpose of it? Oh, just sell it. We'll figure it out later. Whereas when the Magic Bands came out, they had a true purpose.
Right. And I could see if we were annual pass holders or we were still DVC and we'd be going down a couple of times a year. All right, sure, I'll get the new band, because that's the other thing too, is that no longer as a resort guest do you get a free Magic Band, because that was what they kind of moved away from, the room keys.
Right. The crack dealers at Disney gave you the first dose, and now you got to pay for the rest.
Well, fortunately, we have enough Magic Bands. We don't need we don't need to buy a $50 one. So
all right. So the technology to me seems more like a scam than anything else, and it's a money grab. I think we can kind of agree on that to a large extent.
Sure, we'll go with that.
All right, let's take our last break, and we'll come back and we'll chop up the park experience. We'll be right back.
Insights into Teens, a podcast series exploring the issues and challenges of today's youth. Talking to real teens about real teen problems. Explore issues from braces to puberty, social anxiety to financial responsibility. Each week, we talk about the topics concerning today's youth. We look at how the issues affect teens, how to cope with these issues, and how parents, friends, and loved ones can help teens handle these challenges. Check out our video episodes on youtube.com/insightsintothings. Catch our audio versions on podcast.insightsintoteens.com or on the web at insightsintothings.com.
All right, we're back bitching about Disney parks. Here we go.
It's going to be such a great podcast.
So we've got 3 to complain about, and I'll start off with Epcot. So we're still at the point where we have to make a reservation to get in the park.
Correct.
One would think the reason for that was to regulate how many people were in the park, you would think, right?
You would think.
Still packed and crowded as hell. Don't understand that. Got to make a reservation, but I got people crawling all over me still. Someone needs to explain that one. Huge sections of the park are shut down because of the construction that's happening, which isn't unusual for Disney. The problem is it requires you to completely reroute how you get from point A to point B.
Correct.
In a park that has literally the longest walk between rides already. So it's forcing you to extend those rides where they probably could have been a little more strategic in how they set those barriers up. Oh, and the fact that you have to order ahead for food now because you can't even stand in line to buy food almost at any of the restaurants, the quick serve restaurants.
Well, we actually didn't run into any problems with any of the quick serve. They were still
okay, good.
We were still able to. It wasn't mandatory because I know when they first opened after COVID, that was the only way you could.
All right, then I'll save
make
that complaint for
reservations.
Studios because I have a very specific complaint about that in Studios.
So Epcot, we really didn't do any because the food and wine was going on, so that you had to go to the little individual booths, and they weren't really that busy. And then after that, we kind of cut our day early because that was our first day in the park. It was extremely hot, and there was so much lack of shaded areas for us to go and hide that we just kind of called it a day just because we were just overheated by that point. So we really didn't have a big quick service meal. We just kind of snacked.
So we weren't there long enough for it to really be a problem.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So then we go to Hollywood Studios. Again, crowded. Don't know why. The restriction to the quick serve I had a problem with here because it was hot. Normally when it's hot, I'll go into the ABC commissary just to cool off, sit in the corner somewhere, relax. Couldn't get in if I didn't have a food order. They literally had bouncers sitting outside the entrance, not letting people in.
Right.
How do you do that? It's like getting a reservation at McDonald's. It's idiotic.
Right. I didn't understand that. But you did eventually get in because you said you were just going
They stuck me in a corner, literally between two pillars to charge the scooter.
When I went to go find you, I'm like, where the heck is he?
Now I give total props to all the cast members that were there because they were making sure I was okay. They were offering me water. The one woman comes over and asks if I wanted to have a cupcake. So the staff was fantastic, but the policies I think were terrible.
That's I think what it is it's the policies that other people put into place, and now you have these cast members that are the ones enforcing it and are like, ugh.
So the other thing that bugged me was I was very much looking forward to going to Galaxy's Edge, going to Doc Ondar's, and shopping and buying some of the unique stuff. And they didn't have jack in there.
Right.
Not only did they not have anything cool, new, or interesting, they had a 20-minute wait in line to look at the lightsabers that they had in the case if you wanted to buy something. A 20-minute wait to spend $200 and some dollars.
Yeah, that is crazy.
That's ridiculous. And they had a guy sitting there enforcing, almost like he had a cattle prod, making sure people were bunched up on top of each other because the lines were packed so tight.
Right.
That was such a turnoff for me. It really was. What else do we have? Finding a seat at the quick serve was like, almost impossible. You had people just circling around waiting for someone to get up.
Right. Now, we did eat at the docking station.
Right.
And that, again, didn't have a problem, because they asked when you got there, did you do a mobile order or are you placing an order? Because they had two separate lines.
Right. They let you get in to order something, which was nice because I could at least get in and cool off.
Right. And then, just like, the quick serve. But we've had that before where there weren't always tables available depending on what time.
Well, before our quick serve was always the way that we went because or the mobile ordering was how we went because that was our secret weapon.
Right. And now everybody does it. So, of course, you need the app to do it. And, but it worked out. We still got a meal. We still had a table. You know,
couldn't book anything with Savi's workshop to build a lightsaber.
Well, and honestly, if we had tried to book it when we had made our reservations, we probably would have.
I shouldn't have to book spending $400.
I understand that.
6 months in advance. I shouldn't have to do that.
Right. But that's the thing is when we went 2 years ago, we made those reservations as soon as we could make them and we got them.
My biggest concern here was I couldn't even see that there weren't reservations or how to make that. It wasn't even an option. Right. It took you a while to find
because I had to search. I did a search for Savi's and
right.
Again, it was a whole secret thing because if I didn't know what to call it,
right,
I wouldn't have been able to find it. There was nothing obvious. Again, you had to search, but you had to know what you were searching for. So
there were far fewer character interactions at Galaxy's Edge this time than the last time. Mm-hmm. Everywhere you look, last time we were there was a character you were bumping into them left and right.
Right.
There were 2 or 3.
Kylo Ren and some stormtroopers.
Right.
That was
and
about
at one point in time, Chewbacca and somebody else was up on a platform somewhere. Oh, see, I didn't even see them. You couldn't interact with them. They were basically up there just waving at people like it was a parade float.
Right, right. Well, that even happened when we were in Epcot. Pooh Bear was behind a fence.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
they stuck him out in the sun.
In the sun, the poor Pooh Bear. Man. He was melting, I'm sure. Yeah. So
the other issue I had was solo rider times, not single rider. It was solo rider at Smuggler's Run, which I thought was funny.
Right.
They don't publish them.
Right.
You didn't know. The only way we knew it was a 5-minute single rider line was because we overheard someone say it. And we're like, excuse me, how long is a single rider? And they're like, 5 minutes. I'm like, all right, let's go.
Right.
And like one other person did the same thing. And it's like, given how bad your application works for booking these rides, how are you not? It's not up on the signs.
Right.
Nobody's out there. They have one cast member come out and start saying, hey, 5-minute single rider ride if anybody wants to get on.
Right.
How do you not have a provision for that?
Right. And that's something. So going back to Epcot, Test Track has been a single rider ride for as long as I can remember. So most people know about it. So they have, 3 separate entrances for it. And then, of course, as soon as you get close, they're like, oh, don't forget, your party will be separated, blah, 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 and you go on. I had only known about Soarin' having it from watching somebody else's video. So if I didn't watch that other person's video, I wouldn't have known. And I think at Soarin', they're still doing it as a test. It's not official. And again, we had gotten it as the one lightning lane, and when we went up I was like, oh, are you guys still doing, oh look, and they basically just have like a cast member holding a sign saying single rider, and then you go on. Smuggler's Run, I wasn't sure if they were doing it until we got to the front of it and we're like, oh, okay, great. And we, I think it took us longer to walk the whole entrance.
That's just poor planning and poor execution on Disney's part. That's a major selling point that you could be using to enhance people's visits there, especially with the crappy system that you put in place instead of the fast passes.
Right.
So we, at one point in time, wanted to go over to Star Wars Launch Bay and cool off, look at the stuff they had there, see if there's anything to shop for. And it was literally a ghost town.
Right.
They shut down the Little Mermaid thing that was there. They shut down the gift shop that was there.
Right, Little Mermaid has been shut down since.
But everything was shut down. The only thing that was open was a couple of the Play Disney thing.
Right, but they did have Star Wars characters. That was still open.
Yeah, if you walked 5 miles back.
Well, that was the whole thing, right?
Because they weren't advertising it anymore.
Right. Well, no, they had the sign when you got to the area, so you had to know. But yeah, that was the whole thing because the Launch Bay area, there was the whole shop there, and then you'd walk through the shop, and then they'd have the characters and artifacts from the from the movies and things.
It was like just a completely forgotten area.
Right. It was just kind of, and the other thing too was it closed at 5. Right. So then that whole section, even though there wasn't a whole lot to the section to begin with, became even more of a ghost town because again, you already had the Little Mermaid that they haven't reopened Little Mermaid yet. So the little princess store right next to it, that shut down. Then there's a Play Disney gift shop that hasn't opened yet. So you had the couple of characters, but no gift shop, and then you had
Like at that point in time, just shut the whole area down and block it off.
Exactly.
You're just, it's ridiculous to even have a couple of things open.
Right.
Like I went to get the scooter. I could have swore I saw a tumbleweed blow through. It was so deserted over there.
Well, the squirrels were more entertaining over there.
It was embarrassing.
Yeah, it was
really
kind of sad. And the other thing too was like Maddie and I did the Muppet movie, and there's a Muppet gift shop as soon as you get out. And I was like, all right, as soon as we get out, we'll go into the, gift shop to cool off. And that wasn't open too. So that was really kind of the first, seeing a lot of the gift shops that weren't open, because in Epcot doesn't have as many little gift shops along the way because you have all of the different countries, so all of those were open. So we really didn't see the effect of things until we got, to Epcot.
All right, 5 minutes, Magic Kingdom, and then we got to summarize.
Okay.
Go ahead. You go.
Okay, so for the Magic Kingdom, that was our Halloween party. As you had mentioned before, with the Halloween party, they let you get into the park 3 hours before your park time. So, of course, there's, tons of lines to try and get in, everybody to get in. And, of course, because of the holiday party, you have a special band, so it takes longer to get in. And, of course, the storms are coming. So you got people that are trying to leave the park, people trying to come in the park. So, of course, very crowded, at the beginning of it. And it always seems to be kind of disorganized no matter what time you go. So I don't know if it's something where if we actually went closer to 7 o'clock or closer to 6 o'clock, if we wouldn't run into that or not.
Well, and what would make sense if they did that is you do a rope drop type thing.
Mm-hmm.
And for all the people who are coming in for the party, you get them checked in, you get their bands on in that time ahead of time because they're all queuing up.
Yeah, because that happened
and then you have a rope drop when you let them in.
Because that happened when we did, when we did the Christmas party?
I think it was a Christmas party.
Where you actually checked in at the Polynesian.
Right.
And you got your band and everything. So you were already checked in. So as soon as you got off the monorail, you went right in. So they need to kind of go back to that system of, checking in someplace else.
Mm-hmm.
I will say, though, that their security system has gotten better because they don't do every bag being checked.
Right.
So you kind of go through a metal detector, some sort of scanning thing.
I don't know if that's better or if it's just more lax to get people through.
I don't know, but it seemed to go smoother. So that was at least a positive that I saw. But obviously here was another instance. Now, again, don't know how much of it was because it was the holiday party or not. But again, we saw a lot of different shops that were closed. But again, not every shop is always open for the holiday party.
Well, and some of the shops we know were closed because they turn them into other things.
Right, exactly. And then some rides or certain attractions, they turn over to trick-or-treating areas. The one thing that was bizarre was, because again, they have all these different trick-or-treating sections, and they didn't start handing out candy until 7 o'clock. And at one point, we were in Tomorrowland, and it was 6 o'clock, and there was a line forming for people
form a line, which was
to wait for candy.
Yeah.
For free candy.
For a couple pieces of candy you'd get.
So we were just like, no, we're going to go on some other rides. So that was kind of crazy. But once the party kind of started and also once the rain kind of died down, we really didn't have too many issues. It kind of spread out because then you have the people, because there are people that go to the party just to go and see the specialty characters that only come out for the holiday party.
Right.
Then you have people that are just doing the trick-or-treating. Then you have some people that are there to see the special Halloween parade and to see the special Halloween fireworks. So it kind of helps to break it up, because that's when Maddie was able to get on Splash Mountain in 5 minutes. Big Thunder Mountain in 5 minutes. I think Space Mountain was 20 minutes. I think that was her longest wait. Haunted Mansion, I think it was about 20 minutes, maybe even less for us to get on that.
So let's summarize before we leave here.
Sure.
Give me a score, 1 out of 10, 10 being the highest of your overall Disney experience. Give me that artificially high score you're going to give me.
7.
Really? Wow. I would not have thought it would have been that low.
Really?
Yeah.
You would have thought I would have given it higher.
I thought you would have been an 8 or a 9.
Ha-ha!
I'd probably give it about a 5.
Mm-hmm.
And really my problem was more with management and execution.
Mm-hmm.
You know, poor planning, poor... And you can blame it on the fact that they haven't brought all their staff back, whatever you want to blame it on.
Yeah.
But there's ways to compensate for that. And to me, it was a disappointing experience.
The one highlight of our trip, and I think we can both agree on this.
Steve from Brooklyn.
Steve from Brooklyn.
Absolutely. Steve from Brooklyn. He was so close to restoring my faith in Disney. He was so optimistic. He was the best bus driver we ever had.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
He was so good. I almost want to use Facebook again so I can follow him. Almost. But Facebook's too evil.
Right. So fortunately, I'm already friends with him. And I had been friends with him already. And when he pulled up, I was like,
that was a very
friends
magical
with you.
experience. And I don't use that term very often for Disney, but that was a magical experience, and I thank him for that.
Yes.
All right, that is all we had for today, and probably that's more than enough. We kind of cut some of my complaints short because I, do have a heart condition with blood pressure and everything. So, before we do go though, I would like to once again invite our listening and viewing audience to subscribe to the podcast. You can find audio versions listed as Insights into Entertainment. Audio and video versions of all of our network's podcasts can be found under Insights into Things. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, etc. I would also ask you to write in, give us your feedback. You can email us at comments@insightsintothings.com.
You can find us on Twitter at twitter.com/insights_things.
We do stream 5 days a week on Twitch at twitch.tv/insightsintothings.
You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/insightsintothingspodcast.
We're also on YouTube at youtube.com/insightsintothings.
We're also on Instagram at instagram.com/insightsintothings.
Or you can find all that and much more on our official website at insightsintothings.com. That's it. Another one in the books.
Have a good week, everyone.
Bye.
Bye. Insightful podcasts by informative hosts. Insights into Things, a podcast network. Welcome to Insights into Entertainment, a podcast series taking a deeper look into entertainment and media. Your hosts, Joseph and Michelle Whalen, a husband and wife team of pop culture fanatics, are exploring all things from music and movies to television and fandom.
Welcome to that sudden intro to Insights into Entertainment, episode 151, Indy Strikes Back, the Disney Fire Sale. I'm your host, Joseph Whalen, and my rested and relaxed co-host, Michelle Whalen. I don't think I changed that from the last one.
I don't think so. I think you kind of left it.
Because you were very busy today. I don't think you're rested and relaxed.
No, I am not.
How you doing today, dear?
I am doing well. How are you?
Doing okay. So we finally, we had some, I guess, entertainment news that was worthy of talking about.
True.
Anything else exciting happened since our last podcast?
I can't think of anything. I don't even remember.
Yeah, well, it was only a few weeks ago.
Yeah, it wasn't
long.
that long ago. No, I don't think anything
I
really.
think things have been kind of tame.
Yeah,
So
they normally are for us. So
usually, thankfully.
Mm-hmm. We're not at Comic-Con this week.
That's
San
true.
Diego.
Yeah, we didn't go out to San Diego for that. We don't have any conventions coming up anytime soon, do we?
No, because the last one, Fan Expo, we actually decided not to go to.
Yeah.
So I think the next one coming up is, I think there was a ZoloCon fall thing, and then RetroCon is the one that comes in September. So I don't think there's anything in the summer lineup for us.
Interesting. That's usually our season too to do.
Yeah.
But yeah, when a good one comes around, we'll cover it for everyone.
Absolutely.
So with the writers and actors on strike, box office numbers struggling to rebound after the pandemic, and missteps from streaming costing studios billions, what could Hollywood possibly do to save the day? Maybe have a fire sale. Make some money, or at least that's what Bob Iger's looking to do. But before we see our heroes on the picket lines or unemployment lines, we first saw them on the silver screen in Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. And we've got our thoughts on that and more coming up on this episode of Insights into Entertainment. But first, I'd like to take a moment to invite our listening and viewing audience to subscribe to the podcast. You can find audio versions of this podcast